Did it again.
Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, and we've created the premier platform for alumni worldwide to spark connections through affinity relationships, whether it be college alumni, whether it be business alumni associations, fraternities, sororities, or athletes. We're trying to make a difference and help these people out and provide value. And this show has been created to teach and inspire athletes that there is life after sports and how they go on the journey to business and entrepreneurship. Today, we're really excited. We have Marc Chaykin on with us. Marc and I go way back. We're good friends, and he's got some real exciting things to share with us on his whole journey. Marc played baseball growing up and into college, and then transitioned to be a collegiate cheerleader, and then got into acting. He's my head's kind of spinning thinking of all the things that he does, and now he's president of US CheerleadingAssociation. So Marc, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome. Yeah. So this is fun. I like to ask different questions, and the first one is, tell me about growing up playing sports and how it helped to shape your life.
Well, I lived in New York. It was a small city upstate. And I loved baseball. I would go outside, I'd play with all my neighbors. Never really played any organized baseball until 10, which when you think about, like my own son, I started him at 4. I found a league that started at 4 as opposed to a lot of leagues that start at 5. But I was just so excited to get involved with when it came to my son. But I started at 10, and I remember I played on a team and we were undefeated. And I want to say, I think we're like 32-0. We get to the championship game. And I remember whenever I would hit, I would either walk or I'd strike out. I would never swing the bat. I must have been just afraid to swing the bat. I remember playing second base and I actually was pretty good at catching the ball. But my skills were never cultivated where I was brave enough to just let it fly, to swing. So I remember I got up and there was a person on base and I'm at the plate and I make the last out, striking out. I didn't walk, I struck out. Something to this day I still remember. But it's not something I remember in a negative way. It's something I remember where when I had an opportunity to work with individuals, whether it was through sports or in life in general, giving them that confidence to go ahead and swing and miss, but learn that strike zone, learn to track the ball, learn to be able to go on up with a plan to help you meet with success. And I've coached 10-year-olds. I've coached all the way through to collegiate age. But going back to that story, when I think about how I made that out in the entire season, I would strike out or walk. And I'm just looking back on that. I don't ever remember someone working with me and trying to help me be able to swing and feel confident about swinging, even if it meant swinging and missing. Oh, well, I mean, but just talking about organized sports, that was my only organized sports experience until I moved to South Florida. And I was one of those individuals that at 12, I was probably amongst the tallest out of all my friends, which, these days is not the case. So, but I remember trying out for Little League and the coach coming out telling me I was his first pick, which I thought, gosh, I felt really bad thinking that he picked me first because he didn't know that I haven't really played baseball but one year when I was 10, and this was a 12-year-old season, which in Little League is a really big year.
Yeah.
And he's telling me that I'm the opening day pitcher, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this guy's having me pitch opening day. It's kind of like, okay, sure, coach, whatever I can do to help the team. And we were playing in Mullins Park, and I remember that I pitched a one-hitter that game.
Wow.
Complete game, 6 innings, 10, I think it was 10 strikeouts. And I remember the umpire coming up to me at the end of the game telling me that I pitched a one-hitter. and I didn't want to correct him because I know more than one ball was put into play. So I thought my job was to strike everyone out. When I think about my baseball IQ, gosh, the little I knew about the game back then, but it's like, so I was just thinking if someone just put the ball in play, that was a hit. So like when everyone's congratulating me, oh, well, you pitched a one hitter. I'm like, oh gosh, I can't believe all these people didn't see more than one ball go into play.
That's funny.
But that season, it was a great year. I had a phenomenal year of baseball throughout. Back then, you really didn't have travel until later on, and then I played Legion ball. But I had such great experiences. Coral Springs would go on to host the Southern Regional Tournament, played with against people like Dwight Gooden, and that came from teams traveling all over the country, some of the best teams, and we were fortunate to play against some very, very talented baseball players. Went on, tried out for Terraville High School. It was the first year that they were opening, and I was the only freshman to make Terraville high school baseball, which back then they didn't have JV. So if you didn't make the varsity program, you weren't playing baseball, which it's really great to see how, just high school baseball has evolved to get more kids included. So I was the first 4-year letterman in Terraville history, had a lot of opportunities to go play places, but I decided that I really wanted the collegiate experience where I could go to the school of my dreams. My parents met at the University of Miami. They just won the College World Series in '85. So while I had scholarship opportunities to go elsewhere, they weren't my top schools.
Right.
And so I decided to go to Miami. And, Greg Elena was an inspiration because he was number 2 in his class academically. But he was really in search of playing for a big time collegiate baseball program. And at the time, Miami was certainly like the premier program, along with Texas, so he ends up going to Miami. He ends up walking on. Bertman was one of the coaches there with the Wizard, Ron Frazier. And it's an interesting story how he says, okay, well, you made the team, but don't expect to play in the spring. Well, we're going to keep you on in the spring, but don't expect to play. And then he ends up becoming in '85 the World Series MVP. And when you think that this player was a walk-on, so that really kind of inspired me. I tried out for baseball, made it all the way through to the final cut. After we finished the practice, there were like 5 of us walking back to the dorm. Ran into, I guess, 4 or 5 of the cheerleaders that were female. They asked us to try out for cheerleading. They were very attractive. And I said, you know what? I will be there if you were there. So I ended up going to cheerleading tryouts. I never cheered a day in my life. But I did find it interesting. I've watched them, just some of the things that they would do on the sidelines. I had great respect for the girls and the guys, just with what kind of athletes that they were. I was taken onto the varsity team. They told me that they were going to give us stipends where we were getting scholarship money. We're traveling all over the country, and it just sounded like so much fun. And here I really didn't have anything, with the university. There was, I would be fortunate, and it's not to say like, at the time when I think about Greg Elena, he was extremely committed. I often wonder what would have happened if I just stuck with baseball, but I really went. Part of the reason why I went to Miami was to have a great collegiate experience. And gosh, the years that I cheered at I had 3 national championship rings to show for it.
Wow, that's great.
And it was, I was a part of that '86 undefeated team where we went undefeated and we lost with Vinny Testaverde in against Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. Then we go and we run the tables and go undefeated in '87 and win the national championship. And we're flying on the team plane with all the players and just experiencing it, having a front row seat to it all. And then in '88 too, like even those off years, these off years that Miami would have, maybe they would lose one game, and because
Yeah.
of the system back then, they wouldn't they wouldn't have that vote into it. But certainly, if there was a playoff system every year, by the end of the year, end of '88, I mean, that was the year that the fight broke out in Penn State. I was in that tunnel for that fight, and that crazy game that came to a 2-point conversion where there were a lot of things that Miami should have walked out of South Bend with a victory, if not for some crazy things that had happened in that game that later that were questionable with regards to mistakes made officiating. But nevertheless, we still had an opportunity to win it. We could have gone for the tie, but Jimmy Johnson decides, okay, no, we came here to win. And like many of those games where you're going for the 2-point conversion, it just didn't go our way. But once again, that does, he wins another national championship in '88. '89, we win the national championship. '90, unbelievable season again. '91, we win the national championship. And then I stayed on. I was the stadium announcer, mic man. So I was part of that '92 championship season, which again, just amazing. That was, I believe we beat Alabama that year.
Yeah, no, I mean that's like an awesome experience all the way through. So let me ask you a question. So like growing up, what was your dream? Did you dream of being a professional baseball player?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just the dream was to be a professional baseball player and play for your favorite team. So I think just so many young men, and then now maybe young females, because
Yeah.
girls getting involved with baseball, and you see it now, girls coaching on the highest level.
Yeah.
The New York Yankees hired a female manager too for their minor league team. It's exciting, but it's like there's still such a passion and a love that I have for the game of baseball. I love football too, love basketball.
Yeah.
But with regards to just playing and just a passion about it, and that's something that I always try to cultivate, regardless of the age level that I worked with, was hopefully having my players and all the people who I was fortunate enough to be involved with have that type of love for the game.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have been a professional baseball player too. Unfortunately, the talent wasn't necessarily there, but
Yeah.
it was still good. So, take me. So, when you're in college and at UM, what kinds of things do you think that, from an alumni standpoint, was there help from alumni? I mean, not the. I know sometimes you hear different stories about alumni and with the different sports, football, and all that. But did you see people helping other, like the current students? Did that go on, like helping shape them, mentor them?
Oh yeah, often you would end up seeing different programs where alumni would come back, and whether it was academically or, I mean, just Miami's always been known to like to have their former players come back. That was, if you ever spend some time on campus, it's all about that. The workout room is Dwayne Johnson, named after Dwayne Johnson, because of everything he's done for the program. And then when you walk through the football facility, it's just a who's who of college and pro football history, name after name, of just these phenomenal players that I was so fortunate to, call some of them dear friends, and others that I've watched from the sidelines and cheered on. And then in some other cases, just since I graduated and I went straight from the field to the stands, where I've been season ticket holders for my entire life, just kind of supporting the university and staying as connected as possible. But, every year Miami has their Paradise Camp for football, where just these elite football legends come back and give back to the players, and they're around it. And people travel in from all over the country, and you can see how Mario Cristobal, just of late, for him to just completely uproot everything and leave and go to his alma mater. I mean, it's when you've been a part of it, you just have such a love for the university, as so many people do for their own
Oh yeah.
university. It's such a special connection. It's unlike anything, with regards to as you graduate from an institution where you have like wonderful sports programs, and you're a fan for life.
Yeah, no, and that's we're trying to encourage that with our platform is just having, like you said, that affinity relationship, whether it be from your school or as an athlete, and really promoting that because it's something special. You can and I know you like me do a lot of networking, connecting with people, and it's I think it's having that step up. I mean, you can go to different events and meet people, but when you have that relationship, like, hey, we went to the same school together, we played sports, it definitely means something. What's your kind of a hot topic right now is the NIL and just people, these college athletes promoting themselves and having the opportunity to make money. Well, give me what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the concern why there's always been so many rules in place was to have a fairness, a competitive balance. Well, clearly that's not the case at the highest level of collegiate football to begin with. Where, and I saw some interesting broadcasters talking about, with coaches going to certain parts of the country and being able, like, to just use Mario as an example. If Mario, and he's put together a really dynamic staff collegiately, if they can recruit and keep their players home in Florida, and if coaches in California and Texas, like, the fact that Texas A&M is coming off of such a great season, and Jimbo Fisher has recruiting classes going the right way, if you can start seeing that, it's going to create a competitive balance, because so many programs like Alabama have been able to recruit and take all of Florida's best players, or I shouldn't say all of them, but so many
Right.
talented players where traditionally they would stay. And they were talking that might be a way to have balance, because if all of the best players from certain hotbed areas are going to the same elite programs over and over again, that's why you end up seeing the same team being good
Right.
over and over and over again. Now, there's a lot more than just recruiting. They're great coaches. They do well with game management. There's so much that goes to getting your program to the highest level and being able to win. So they're really good, but just being able to have the players are important. If you want to match up with speed and be able to do certain things to be successful, you need to have the players. So I think that getting back to your initial question about NIL, which really that's like we're just talking about an element of fairness and how the same teams have been successful. I like it. I like it a lot for a number of reasons. You look at a player like Melvin Bratton, who in his last game in the Orange Bowl ends up getting injured, affects his pro career. Now, if he had NIL deals and he was financially set because of what a special player he was throughout his collegiate years, I also like the fact that maybe players won't leave so early,
Right.
because now they have an opportunity to make money on the collegiate level. And
Right.
why shouldn't they? Like they should. They've become a person of interest, a celebrity. Like they should be able to make money from their, just like anyone else would.
Right.
Why shouldn't they be, just because they're an athlete? And yeah, if they're fortunate enough because of everything that they bring to a university to get a scholarship, wonderful, great.
Right.
That good. I'm happy for those individuals. And then if they're able to also make money because of it, what, wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's great for all the athletes. I support it. Now, granted, it'd be like right now, there's not a whole lot of, I guess, parameters.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to be necessary as things play out, but I certainly love the fact that athletes have an opportunity. For the longest time, you'd see this amazing athlete, and he wasn't even allowed to get a job.
Right.
So then he didn't have money
Yeah.
while he's one of the best collegiate players in the country. And then all of a sudden, somebody wants to take him to lunch, or someone gives him some
Yeah.
money to go do something. And then that's an NCAA infraction. Can you
Right.
imagine if someone was telling the NCAA, oh, well, that's fine. You can go ahead and do what you're doing for collegiate sports, but you can't get paid to do it. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
it's insane.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things we're trying to do at Alumni Direct is we're creating within our community centers, Athletes Corner. We're trying to give a platform for these college athletes to promote themselves, and then also alumni athletes as well. Because I think you have all these guys or women that go to these big schools and they're more known, but there's a lot of smaller schools that people don't necessarily know the athletes at a national level, but the alumni do. And so that's something. And one of the I guess concerns that I've heard a couple people talked about, we've talked about on the show, is that all of a sudden, these maybe some of these athletes making all this money, just not knowing how to handle it, that they have to pay taxes on it, things like that. So I think it's important to, and there's a lot of resources out there, and we're trying to partner with people like that want to work with these athletes and kind of guide them, on
Yeah,
that and social media, because social media
absolutely.
is a whole nother big problem.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity with social media as well. So there's the good with the bad.
absolutely.
100%. I look at the bad where so much misinformation is dangerous. I
Right.
mean, you see what's going on in the world right now with, just the lack of knowledge within a country like Russia with their
Yeah.
own citizens because of state-run television. But there's so many wonderful things about social media too.
Right.
I've been able to stay in touch and connect with people from elementary school,
Yeah.
that you would lose touch. There were a lot of times I was like, oh, well, I wish I would have had the ability to have an iPhone when I was in college to
Sure.
capture some of these amazing experiences that you weren't allowed to bring a phone, and like you weren't allowed to bring a camera to a lot of things that we did. So you're not carrying a camera in, so you really have your memories. But if you look, so often it's photographs that spark memories,
Yeah.
and that you remember things from looking at photographs. And
Absolutely.
it's just so I do look at the power of social media, and while there's a lot of drawbacks, there's also a lot of positive aspects, and for these athletes, a lot of opportunity to generate some wealth, and in some cases, generational wealth.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and there's organizations out there, and we're trying to find partner with them too that want to help kind of guide them and through through social media and doing things the right way and all that. Question about when you look at colleges, and I guess in your specific experience, and UM being a big program like that, do you see the schools or the athletics working with these athletes to kind of prepare them for the life after sports?
no, well, I absolutely just going through just some of the camps, like when my son was going through a Miami camp, just to see the resources that they put, from the ability to get tutored to a number of different things that they're doing, where it could be life after baseball or life after whatever the sport
Right.
is. I think it's really important because so many collegiate athletes, especially, a lot of people that aren't playing at that level, but even the ones that are, the percentages that are going to go on and be able to make a living at it. And then even ones that are fortunate enough to get to the highest level and make a little money. But, if you're not intelligent about how you manage that money, it's not going to last very long.
Yeah.
So you want to, have a plan. And there is a lot of people with the skills that they've acquired through athletics that can be very successful,
Yeah.
in a number of business opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's just the preparation, the practice, the blood, sweat, and tears definitely helps people. So, We talk about, mentioned a little bit about alumni and kind of connections. How do you leverage? Do you leverage your alumni relationships with, whether it be, from whether it be through the athletics, whether it be through, again, we talked about the acting, or do you utilize that, in talking and helping, them and you?
Well, when I went to Miami, I double majored, and I was a broadcast major, and then I was a theater arts major. So that's actually where I started working on the craft of acting. Did a number of shows at Miami, and then I actually did some theater at my high school too. And then yeah, I stayed in touch with a lot of people in the theater department at Miami. Uh, from a business side of things, yeah, I mean, when I think about it, I've worked with some of my friends that were that came from Miami, and with they ran their own theater department. They called me in to work on a project. So yeah, absolutely. Um, with regards to after I graduated, I one of my most interesting auditions, one of my most difficult ones was actually Universal Studios was opening up. They were going to have a grand opening, and they were going to have some of Hollywood's elite. So they wanted to open with 13 um, of these VIP talent escorts, in essence. So I auditioned with thousands of people, and the amount of information that I had to remember. And I remember going into a room and there'd be like 500 people. You'd sit down, you'd be doing an interview just like you and I are doing, and then you'd finish, and then they'd read out like 5 names and say, please, everyone else, thank you very much. And like they kept asking you to come back in an hour, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the 13 that was picked. And my I had Jane Seymour and her kids and Sissy Spacek, and just that whole experience during the grand opening was such a neat one. And uh, Jimmy Stewart. I had an evening where I had dinner with Jimmy Stewart and his
It's a
wife.
wonderful life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Charlton Heston was there. Sylvester Stallone. Gosh, there were so many incredible Hollywood actors, Borgnine and Janet Leigh. I mean, it was just, it's quite a list. So I ended up remembering, like, I took some photographs, and my agent calls me and they tell me that HBO is doing this gig. I go down on the audition, I book it. It was like a week that we shot it on Key Biscayne with like all their top actors for the season. And then the very next week, I booked my first national commercial for Miller Lite for the Super Bowl, and it was shot in the old Orange Bowl.
Wow.
And I want to say, I think your day rate as a Screen Actors Guild actor, this is your SAG rate, but then where you make the majority of your money is on residuals. That commercial, I think maybe 15,000, for the day. But what I remember so well was there was this guy, Johnny Gardelli. He was a really great looking guy. There were 3 of us that we were pretending to be Brown fans. So we were like the dog pound. One of us had to wear a dog mask. He was the one that unfortunately got picked, and he didn't get the residuals because he was downgraded. And so I quickly learned, do not put on the dog mask.
Yeah, no, definitely
you
not.
you don't want to do that. But like that kind of launched my career, into acting. And my first season, oh my gosh, I booked 8 national commercials, which I never did again. Back then I didn't realize just how special it was, because I'm like, hey, where are all these movies? Where are these television shows? Why aren't I getting opportunities for those? But back then Miami was a really big commercial market. And then quickly after I learned of what a special season that was, booking as many spots as I did, I became very grateful. And
Yeah.
that, and I to this day, I'm still involved with the business, not quite as often,
Right.
when projects come along, but it's still a real passion. Just the creative process, the making of, being on the set, uh, whether you're meeting a director, you're meeting an ad agency and clients, and wanting to go deliver, and be good, be prepared. It's fun. It's really enjoyable.
Yeah. So obviously, everybody, Mark's had a pretty cool life. So, kind of wrapping up the last question, then we'll kind of get into like what you're doing today. What advice would you give to athletes as as their career is winding down, whether it's done from college, injury, or professional? What advice would you give them in their journey to life after sports and becoming successful as an entrepreneur like yourself?
I would say taking a lot of those skill sets that allow them to be successful in sports, dedication, commitment, preparation, and then putting it into the field that they have a passion for. And then just always trying to make sure that what you're doing, that you have a purpose. What is this purpose? And it shouldn't just be about creating wealth. It should be about making a difference
Yeah.
and making a positive difference, no matter what it is. I often think whenever I meet someone, what are they doing for a living? And then like how like whatever their job is, how I think, oh, there's so many different ways that person can make a positive difference with what they're doing.
Right.
And I just think ultimately, there's always the aspects of understanding, well, if you had, because a lot of times we have multiple things that we're interested in, that, one might be more commercially viable. So it might be able to provide a better living, which, the more opportunity you are to be successful, and a lot of times the more resources that you can maintain to actually help other people and make a difference. And so that there's that aspect too, and saying, well, is there a need for this? Or if you think about something and you think, well, how can we make this better? I was just watching Super Pumped, thinking about Uber,
Yeah.
and how, like, I don't know if you've seen that series yet, but
Yeah, I do want to see it. Yeah, it's good.
but like, just like the whole thought of that, where before there was Uber, where you could just on your phone set up like a car to come pick you up. You're
Right.
walking out, and if it happens to be a hotel or an area that all the cabs are, around, okay, you're going to be able to get a cab. But, with something like car sharing, where it evolved to car sharing, because it was cabs were being regulated. So they had to say, well, we're not a cab company, we're a car sharing company. But the reason why I even bring it up is there's always a thought concept.
Yeah.
With regards to, we only have what we have right now.
Right.
And then you think, well, wow, what a great idea that would be, that you can just walk anywhere and you can just be getting a ride, just boop on, and then paying on the phone. You don't have to do anything, and a system of being able. So while it was a very successful venture financially, just like you look at like the iPhone.
Right.
I mean, I remember watching a movie like Minority Report,
Right.
and how Detective Atherton was touching all the screens, and back then there was no such thing as touch screen.
Yeah. That's all
We
live
didn't,
and
we
how
didn't
real
have
today.
that.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden the iPhone comes out, and now you have a touchscreen phone, and how that evolved and changed so much of
Yeah.
everything in the world from that technology. So yes, it's one of the, it is the premier company now. You look at Apple, but so many of their products,
Yeah.
what they've done to change the world
Oh,
with
yeah.
that type of technology. And like, it's just so powerful. But I remember the scene where just in one of the movies, where his daughter was listening to like a Sony Walkman, and she has this big thing. And I remember back in the day, if you had a cassette tape, where I made mixtapes, you can only have like a certain amount of songs. And
Yeah.
now you can like throw thousands of songs into like
Oh,
this.
yeah. No, it's
Like,
crazy.
you
So
know,
now
it's exciting.
oh, yeah, it's nuts. So taking it the final step here, we're going to talk a little about what you're doing today. And I will preface that, Marc talked about the cheerleading. He forgot to mention, so I'm going to mention it for him to score some points, that he did meet his beautiful wife through cheerleading. So now take you fast forward to you're now the president.
I proposed to her at the national championship game right when Miami scored.
There and you go. Look at that.
It said, Julie Duncan, let's go ring shopping. So I did do a little more romantic one, but I know she was really ready at that point. So
so I scored some points with her bringing up. But so tell us today, you and her, you run United States Cheerleading Association. Tell us a little bit about that. Give us kind of this is the fun part where I say, here's your commercial, and tell people what you're doing and how they can find you.
Well, we're at uscheer.com or uscheerleading.com. We've been doing it now for over 30 years.
Wow.
Our big event, we have the US National that's coming up. It's been our premier event where we've had teams traveling in from 4 continents and all over the US over the years. And we also run the US National Championships. On a local level, we've held classes with the city of Boca Raton on a rec level. And then Julie has her gym, which is the Boca Raton Hurricane All-Stars. So appropriately so, we took our passion for cheer and we made a living with it, because it's such a wonderful sport, which it now has been accepted by the IOC. It's going to be a new Olympic sport. So it's all over the planet now, where you have competitive cheerleading. Cheerleaders, just some of the world's best athletes, training from across the globe, where it's gonna, and it really kind of just like so many wonderful sports like baseball, which was an American sport that caught on in many parts of the world, and cheerleading is very much the same. So just absolutely love it. I always loved the just how positive it is and uplifting, and it's something that I really enjoy doing every day.
That's great. We need more of that. So again, thank you so much for doing the show tonight. It's been great. To find us, you can find us on alumnidirect.com. You can find us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we're continuing to do things like this. We want to provide valuable content to alumni and just helping make a difference in people's lives. So thank you again, everybody, and we look forward to the next show.
Yeah. Well, Rob, thank you for doing what you're doing. I've told you before, just, if you're involved with it, I know it's going to be great. And, thank you for making a difference.
Well, I appreciate that. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.